Hey everyone, today I'm joined by Junaid Ahmed. Junaid is the founder of Home Studio Mastery and an expert in transforming home workspaces into professional video production studios. He has over a decade of experience in video production and tech solutions, and he has helped countless entrepreneurs, influencers, creators just elevate their content by optimizing their home studios. So whether you're just starting out or looking to upgrade your current setup, Junaid's insights in this episode are going to help you create a space that's both functional and a reflection of your personal style. This is an episode that you'll want to see some clips from because obviously we're talking about video. So make sure to check out the Agency Forward LinkedIn page where you can get all of this content. Now, in this episode, we discuss common mistakes people make when setting up a home studio, essential elements every professional home studio needs, how to design a studio that enhances both creativity and productivity, and more. Today's episode is brought to you by ZenPilot. There are lots of tools out there for agencies to manage projects, but any project issues aren't usually caused by the tool, they're from your own processes. ZenPilot helps agencies implement their project management tools while streamlining operations, so your team can move from chaos to clarity. You can see for yourself at zenpilot.com/forward. And now, Junaid Ahmed. It's easier than ever to start an agency, but it's only getting harder to stand out and keep it alive. Join me as we explore the strategies agencies are using today to secure a better tomorrow. This is Agency Forward. Why should everyone invest time in their studio setup?
You know, that's a great question, Chris. Time in our studios. Now, just like we spend a lot of time in curating our living room, our dining room, the walls, what's going to go on the walls, we spend a lot of time in there. Why? Because we want to invite the guests that come to our homes to have a place to hang out with and sit down. So because we spend that time in creating that setup, when you invest time in setting up your home studio, what you're doing is you're setting up yourself for success. You're cutting down all of the friction that goes into setting up gear, that goes into troubleshooting problems that might arise. Because you spent some time you've invested some time in setting up your studio. That means that you've thought through all of the different scenarios. And sometimes things might come out of the left field and you're like, okay, how do I do this? Well, lucky for you, because you've spent so much time in thinking through and practicing in that studio, you're able to resolve that issue a lot quicker than for somebody who'd be like, you know what, I can't figure this out. I'm going to have to cancel the podcast episode. Let's do it another time. So again, you're much more better prepared.
Right. I think something that was mind-blowing for me, it was on the last panel that we were on together with Nikki's group. The Mark von Muser, hopefully I said his name right, told that story about them hiring the biggest Google Ads expert at the time. Yeah. And like everyone knew him as this guy who crushed it for Google Ads. But all people wanted to talk about when they were in the meeting was how awesome his setup was. And so I just thought it was really telling, because when you look at the inverse of that, right, I could have all the skills in the world and show up and be able to just crush it for you. But if I don't look like I can, now we're potentially screwed. And so, I guess have you seen a lot of that with clients that you're working with? Have you seen like a deliberate shift in that, I guess?
Absolutely. You know, first of all, it's almost like you're showing up to the big boys table in shorts, right? You don't have the shirt on, you don't have a jacket, you just show up. And when you're going as a business owner, right? As an agency owner, as a business owner, when you're going to a place where you're expected to do business, well, people want to make sure that you respect them by dressing up, right? You're not only respecting yourself, but you're also respecting the other people who's put in the time to show up professionally. So the same thing you're doing when you're setting up your space. Now, a lot of people that I have worked with, they had the same issue. They probably had a window in their shot. And they're like, I don't know how to get this lighting right. I'm like, well, there's a really beautiful light right behind you that you can, if you just flip around your camera, you
Right.
can utilize that powerful light to show you up, to show, highlight you in the shot.
Right. Instead of being backlit like you're doing an anonymous interview with for a
Exactly.
news story.
100%.
So COVID, I think, kind of shifted everything and moved a lot of companies into remote work and made this more important now.
Mm-hmm.
But are you seeing a lot more people trying to actually pay attention to their setup now, rather than just saying, "Well, I can get away with just having my laptop open while I sit on the couch,"
Yeah.
versus creating a studio so that they're actually showing, I imagine for like career advancement and stuff, right? You're putting yourself out there in a better light.
100%. You are definitely putting yourself out there in a better light when you pay attention to the lighting, when you pay
Yeah,
attention,
no pun intended.
no pun intended, right? When you pay attention to what's in your background, most people allow curating that setup because they want to show up professionally, just like, you don't want to show up unprofessional to a professional meeting. So a lot of people who are working from home, and sure, there are orders from different companies like Amazon and Google to, come back to work, order, whatnot. But a lot of the entrepreneurs, we're still working from home. What office are we going to go to and work from? No, we were working from home. Now, sure, a lot of people do go to co-working spaces because they can get more work done. But when you're showing up and creating content and being a podcaster like this, you want to show up in the best light possible. Now, I know sometimes it's really, really hard, especially if it's just a hobby, but we're talking about you being an entrepreneur, you being somebody who depends on these videos, these calls for your income. So why wouldn't you show up in the best light possible? Now, there's a story where this guy started to be, he joined real estate and he's showing homes, and he would show up in his little Toyota Corolla from, an older one. And not a lot of people would want to get in his car and, go to see the showing. And at the end of the day, he wasn't able to close any deals because of how he was showing up. So what do we see? A lot of successful realtors. They're driving nice cars, and that shows, that impresses, that conveys a message to the buyer. Okay, this guy must be doing something right. He's definitely knows the right people. He's going to find me the best home that's for me because he's taking care of his outward appearance. And now, yes, we do have a saying, don't judge a book by its cover. But guess what? It's in our human innate nature. Like, we literally, judge everything based on what it looks like. So why not you work on that cover so that people will open and listen to the story that you have to share? And that's what a studio does for you.
Right. Yeah, that saying has never landed well with me. So it's like, if you care enough about what you put in that book,
Yeah.
right, wouldn't you spend a little time making sure the cover's nice? Like, you want to package your art really well. And so I think, exactly, to human nature, right? If we're going to look at a book, we're going to judge it by the cover, because you can tell pretty quickly if someone actually spent some time caring about what they're doing.
I have a new saying now. I mean, I've just come up with this saying on this episode, right?
All right.
Don't judge a YouTube video by its thumbnail.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that fits. So let's get a little tactical here. What are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when starting to set up their studio?
Well, the first thing they do is they spend a ton of time on YouTube, and or if they're not spending a ton of time on YouTube researching, they're asking the question, what camera does somebody else buy? They're going for that one camera that everybody's talking about. And then they go up and buy that camera. And guess what? It still doesn't do the job. Because, as we know, just because you have flour, you can't make cake. You need all of the other tiny little ingredients to make sure that cake settles and, it comes out really well. So camera is just only one part of the entire ecosystem of what a studio stands for. So the biggest mistake people are doing is not studying all of the different elements that they can easily have without spending the massive amount of money with a camera. So if you look at just your lighting alone, if you have good lighting and cheapest lighting, $50 to $150, you can make your webcam image look really sharp and clean because you're providing additional light. Just like how when we go outside, we like spending time outside when the sun is out, not when it's nighttime, right? Because you can't see things clearly. So just like that, cameras want lots of light so that they can help you shine on camera.
Right. So I guess this is another piece that's telling of human nature. Right. I did an agency like AI panel at one point, and I wanted to take a different approach and not talk about the tools, but talk about the mindset you need in order to adopt it. And at one point, I mentioned one tool, and the chat blew up with like, "What tool did he mention? What was he talking about?" I'm like, "Guys, like, we're talking about your mindset here." But similarly, someone was at a Stephen King like writing workshop, and they have the master of horror, right? Who's written so many books and all of this, talking about how you should be writing. And the question someone in this workshop asked was, "What pencil do you use?" It's like, what? Okay, yeah, we're past that now, but yeah, I think everyone will gravitate towards those. Like, what tool do I need in order to do this? When in reality, it's like, if you have to be thinking about this appropriately. Because even myself, like I'm sure you could give me tips right now for my lighting, where like I have one above my desk, and I have two windows that I like on either side of me that I've closed so that I have the rooms a little darker. But even, I mean, I'm sure I need to get backlit, right? There's all these like little things, that I'm not even thinking about.
So what are those things? Well, good thing that you've closed those lights and you've made the room darker. I like to start with a blank slate, and what that means is start with a dark room, start adding lights that highlight you, and make sure that you're framed in correctly too. Right? You want to make sure that you're taking like your face is taking 1/3 or half of the screen, and that the other half is with your bust and your body and your microphone and whatnot, because that will make sure
as I back away from the camera,
you're matching and you're similar to the other person, but we're also mimicking what we see on television, right? So on television, on newscasters, you'll see a lot of their, at least all the way down to their waist or maybe up to their chest area, and then you see their head. And that's how you're communicating, because when you're sitting in front of each other, and this is funny that this is something that I experienced lately. I was doing an in-person podcast interview and I basically had the setup arranged for other people to come and record. And this couple came in. The guy was at least easily 6'2", and the lady was probably 5 something. But when they both sat down on the chair, they're barely inches height difference. Like, wow, that is really crazy. Like our top torsos are mostly around the same size, which is really insane to like even visualize. So you want to make sure that when you're sitting down on chairs, we're basically around the same height, and we're seeing eye to eye. So that's the type of setup that we're doing with our framing on our shots.
Yeah. So I guess let's go back to the blank slate. We just got our room as dark as we can make it.
Yeah.
And we're trying to find all the right angles for everything. What besides lighting, right? And making sure that we have a good lighting source, which could be artificial or natural, I'm guessing. What's the next step? What are we how are we making our shot like
pop? So to make it pop, you're not only just lighting yourself, but then you're also creating some ambient lighting. So as you can notice, I have a little purple, pink, blue stuff going on because I have 2 separate lights that just light that background. It's not me at all, right? So if I were to shut off those two lights. And if you're watching this on video, you can see this. Now my background is completely black and white, and you can just see me properly in the shot. But again, adding those two pieces of lighting in the background brings that background to life, right? So that's something that anybody can do by just adding a little splash of color in that background.
Right. Yeah, I think I need to figure that out for myself. I should probably also not wear the same color shirt as the wall behind me. So, just blending in. It's I think an army thing I'm trying to do. So, all right. So we've got lighting, super important. The equipment, isn't necessarily the most important thing if you can't get everything else straight. But I guess what are some of those? Are there some critical things you should be looking for with your equipment that
100%.
that will help you pay dividends, I guess, in the long run?
Yeah, the number one thing that I say before even all of the other things is make sure that you have a good microphone. Now, as a podcaster, our message or our voice is how we communicate with others. So making sure that you have a good microphone and good treatment in your room, right? So maybe you're in a really big room and there's a lot of echo. So how do you solve that? Well, make sure that you have, number one, a good microphone so that you can be really close to that microphone. Number two, make sure you're eliminating flat surfaces. So if you have walls, make sure you have curtains or paintings or whatnot. On floors, make sure you have some kind of carpeting, rug, and whatnot. And all of those things are going to absorb the excess bouncing of the sound. So again, your sound is the number one thing. Then we are, of course, looking at the lighting, looking at the design of what people see in your shot, because that becomes a scroll stopper, right? If they see something that they like, and we love beautiful things. We stop to look at flowers and sunflowers and whatnot. So the same thing, you're creating that look, that showstopper with your setup. So if you have all of those things lined up, so you got the audio, the lighting, make sure that you're using a good camera. If your webcam's not doing the job, your smartphone, then you're designing your setup and making sure that you don't have any distracting things behind you, like maybe an open door or a mirror or something that's going to distract the audience from listening to the message.
Yeah. For most of the people that you work with, do they have a dedicated office space, or are they working in a different room that, the room's multi-purpose? And so now, right, I'm in, for example, a studio apartment that my in-laws used to live here. They've moved out. And so I've turned this into my office. And so right in the middle of now, the kind of living area, it's, it's this space. But so if we have guests over, I still need to make sure that it's a livable area for everyone. Or how can you kind of take some of those considerations?
Absolutely.
Into mind.
Yeah, 100%. So not everybody's going to have a dedicated room in their homes or in their apartments for a dedicated studio, but making sure that you can utilize the space that you have in the most effective way is important. For example, in my room, this is almost a 12 by 12 room, right? But I've put my desk on one corner. I've got bookshelves on the other corner. So if I did wanted to bring a bed in here, I still could, or or a mattress. So there's room here again for additional activities. So think about it from that perspective. And then the way that you set up your space, you want to make sure that you're minimizing the floor, things that are on the floor. So what do I mean by that? In the beginning, I had tripods. I had tripods for my cameras. I had light stands for my lights. Everything's on the floor, and kids are tripping over. I'm tripping over. So I was like, how do I eliminate that? And I saw a lot of other YouTubers, a lot of other podcasters. They're mounting things on their desks, right? So if you can mount stuff on your desk, and if you have wheels on those desks, guess what? You can then move it out of the way to make that space livable, or push it against the wall. But when you're ready to create content, you can then pull it away from the wall, change it around, and make it more portable kind of setup for yourself then.
Yeah. I wonder the what do they call those beds that you can fold up into the
The
wall?
Murphy beds.
Yeah, Murphy bed. I wonder if you could do a Murphy podcast station and just fold your entire studio up and just
Why not?
but you got me thinking about something else. Just a quick pro tip for people who are planning to get into podcasting or will be guests on podcasts. If you're going to mount your microphone on your desk, don't have just like a base stand. Try to get it actually mounted on like an arm.
Yeah.
Otherwise, every time you tap your desk, you can hear. And like I've had some guests on my previous podcast at Wisconsin, they were like drumming their fingers, and it's like I can't edit that audio enough.
Nope.
And so, yeah, it's something super easy, and you can also get the mic a lot closer to your mouth for better quality. So,
Absolutely. 100%.
but yeah, so I guess, are there any trends that you are currently seeing with studio setups? Just things that like that'll take you to that next side. Maybe you don't need them to get started, but it's like if you're doing these things, you're now moving into like the pro level. You know,
So trends I'm seeing, a lot of people are doing, podcasting style video records for their reels, even though if they're not talking to anybody on the other side.
mhm.
And, you'll see comments like, this guy's talking to nobody. He's just continuing talking because there's no switch back to the other person. So when you're creating content, make sure that you're having a real conversation with somebody else and switch back to the other person as they're paying attention, even if they're not saying a word, because that goes to show your authority. Like you're not just talking into thin air, you're actually talking to somebody, and people want to feel connected. If you're shooting content from the other side, for example, my side angle, right? I'm just looking into my camera or into this camera. But if I'm just shooting this whole thing and nobody sees the other side, well, they're gonna get lost. I'm like, who is he talking to? Why am I seeing this? So that's something that I want to try to debunk or try to see if people do better on that side.
Right. Yeah. And that one, like I've had friends just jump on a call before to be my other person that I'm just talking to. So now it's not me talking to the camera. It's just,
Yeah.
And they can throw in some feedback afterwards, like, hey, maybe fewer ums and rights, right? Things that I know that I'm doing in my speech as I just do it. So that's a good. I guess there's also like I've noticed kind of a distinction, right? Like you have a very nice background. You're doing a lot probably with video as well. I spend most of my video content is done in meetings.
Right.
Like I don't have a YouTube channel for the podcast yet. And so I'm not necessarily creating a background to catch people's eye and like make it look sexy on camera yet. And since most of my videos are really like in client meetings and stuff like
Sure.
that, like, do you find, I guess obviously your business is selling the right, you want people to see a nice background.
Yeah.
Are there, trying to figure out how to phrase this right, because I don't care as much about making the background pop, but I still want something that looks good and kind of sets me apart from the background. What should I be doing, I guess, in order to kind of maximize that effect and not necessarily need like all the lighting and everything, but just to keep attention on me with still not pulling away with like an ugly background?
Yeah. I mean, you said right, you got to have some kind of separation between the color of the shirt that you're wearing and the color of the background, right? So you can, maybe shine a little light on that background or shine a light on you. So that, for example, I've got little shoulder lighting here, you'll notice. And that's because I have a light shining from behind me that's lighting me up. So if you were to add another set of light just above that shelf pointing back at you, you'll automatically create that separation between the wall and not be blending in.
Yeah. So I have actual lighting, like tripods and stuff I can set up. I'm wondering now if I just put one on the floor behind me, angled up, if that'll be enough to.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's all about experimentation, right? You might not get it right the first time, but the more you experiment, the more you play around with it. That's how I was able to tune this up to it's always the same every single time.
Right. Yeah. I am 100% confident I will not get it right on the first try. So what's the 80-20 here, right? If I could do one thing to really just knock it out of the park? And what would that be?
Well, you've already done a lot of one things to knock that out of the park over the years, right? We
Mhm.
just got to be 1% better every day. And if we can improve that quality of your video every single day, every, 1%, then you're already doing a lot of work by the end of the year. So again, with good microphone, good camera, good framing, and then having the 3 point of lighting, separation of the background, and then you probably heard this before. Look at the camera when you're talking to somebody, right?
Yeah, that would be good, huh?
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
So that way they feel more connected. And
Mhm.
over the years, I had to practice to just look in the camera, even though I know they're down here on my monitor. I'm practicing to look into the camera sensor, and it got harder and harder till it got easier. But then to make it even more easier, you get the right tools, right? So you bring in the more enhanced tools. For example, I added a teleprompter. Now,
Mhm.
Elgato just came out with a really cool teleprompter, which is for $280 that you can just plug in. It has a little extent monitor built in that can
Mhm.
mirror whatever you see on your computer monitor right in front of the camera. So now you're looking
Right.
directly into the camera, no matter who you're looking to. And, your notes are right there. Anything that you're looking for is right there. So that's
Mhm.
something that I'll always recommend to my clients, and they're like, "Oh my god, this is a game changer! It's
Right.
totally, changed the feeling that I'm creating in other people's
Mm.
lives." I guess I don't even know where I was going for with that one.
Sure. Uh, yeah, that's something that I want to do more. The issue is that I can't see, like, without the teleprompter, right? I can't see
Yeah,
the expressions. I don't
yeah,
know what
yeah.
someone's doing. And so it makes me want to just pull away so that I feel like I'm having the conversation with someone.
Right, 100%.
But yeah, then they don't feel connected to you. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I can
It's
figure out how to
almost
set up.
it's almost like when we're on a phone call, we're not really looking at each other's eyes. We're listening and paying attention to the audio.
Mhm.
So I noticed that you're not wearing any headphones,
Correct.
right? So maybe if you had headphones, you might feel more connected with the
Mhm.
conversation on the other side, because then you can turn up the volume. Like, hey, what are you saying again? I want to hear you better. So again, that sound is going to create that connection with the other person.
Right. Yeah, I guess putting that closer in. I worked pretty hard to get the setup
Yeah.
right so that I don't get any echo or anything with using some good tools. Actually, that's probably another super easy thing for to talk about with your studio setup.
Mm-hmm.
Just like there's some simple software right that you can put in. I'm on a PC with an NVIDIA graphics card, and so
Yeah.
RTX voice is free, and I can
Mm,
cancel out noises using this. And so my kids could be home banging on the piano, doing everything, and I'll be distracted,
yeah.
but no one can hear that in the
No one can hear
audio. And
that.
so
Yeah.
it's awesome. Or my dog's getting one of them sleeping on the couch, and it
Mm-hmm.
used to be that I had to kick him out of the room if I was going to do any episodes, because if they get up,
Yeah.
that's now their nails hitting the floor, things like that. But with this, nobody else can hear it, and so it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess are there other one of the things you had shown in that last panel was even just how to shift your lighting using some of the software. Are
Yeah.
there other tricks like that you recommend people have?
Yeah.
Just as like a
So
quick thing.
yeah, the quick thing is we're all living in pretty uh, well areas where you can now we have the access to technology that enable you to turn on and off the lights through software. So I use something called HomeKit that lets me turn on specific lights on command, and I've also set up scenes so to say, hey, it's time to go recording, and it's send a signal to turn off the lights that I don't need and turn on the lights that I do need. So then again, I'm reducing friction in every single thing. Like 2 minutes before this, I was like, okay, I'm just done finish eating my breakfast. Let me go jump down. And as I'm walking down, I just tell Siri, hey, it's time for studio recording. And I turn on the lights and I just show up and, I'm online.
Yeah, I need that little assistant instead of walking in, flicking all the switches and.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. All right. So I've got a couple more. questions as we round up here. With the first being separate from your own. So we're going to talk about these in a second. What book do you recommend every agency leader should read?
So the book that you want to read, especially if you're an agency and you're trying to grow your reach, grow your approach, help your clients get further ahead, check out the book by Gary Vee. It just came out called Day Trading Attention. It's actually part two it's basically the second book. His first book was called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And he wanted to name this Jab, 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 Left Hook. But then his marketing people were like, no, that's not going to work. We're going to call it something else. So that's a really powerful book. I've been listening to it and reading it. And he's got so many amazing strategies and tips that you can implement with your business and get immediate results and get a better understanding of what is it that people are actually looking for when they're working for you.
Yeah, that's probably good, man. I'm reading The Experience Economy right now. And
Nice.
One of the kind of biggest points of the book is like where you want to create these awesome experiences for people because we're competing for attention, but not just with our competitors, but with everything.
Yeah.
Right. Like whoever your target audience is, they're going to go home. They have to make dinner. They have to take their pets for walks. They have to put their kids to sleep. But what if you could create an experience that they just want to be part of throughout the rest of their life? And I do think everything we've talked about in this episode for like setting up an awesome background, right? Like being able to create this visual experience and audio like experience will help with being able to create that content that drives people to you.
100%.
So, yeah. Awesome.
No, you're absolutely right. Attention is the number one thing. That's why, the more attention you have with your kids, the more attention you have with your audience, the better they're going to be connected with you. And the more you're paying attention to what they need, the better, relationship you're going to build as well.
Right. Awesome. So let's actually talk your two books now.
Awesome.
Let's give the quick premise for each.
Yeah, 100%. So the first book is called The 7 Stages of Home Studio Evolution. It takes you through a journey of your own evolution as become a content creator or somebody who's looking to get into content creation. Now, as a photographer, filmmaker myself, I started with a simple film camera long time ago, right? But all that I was doing was I was actually using that gear to create content to get better at it. So over time, you're going to level up. Now, the cool part is we all live in an era where we have $1,000 cameras in our hands, in our pockets, that people are creating content on these devices that go on television, that go on Netflix, that goes on commercial, that does all sorts of things. So it's not the gear, it's how well are you prepared, or how well are you practicing the activity that's going to create content. So the book talks about the novice stage. You start with your smartphone, and that's how I started. When I started recording my podcast episodes, I was recording it on my smartphone in my car, right? Because I wanted to get that muscle going. I wanted to train my muscle. I wanted to condition my muscle to be like, hey, this is what I've got to do. And then over time, you just progress and you get better and better. You add in more equipment, you bring in more training, you bring in more nutrition, all of those things go hand in hand, but you got to get started somewhere. So we all can start with our smartphones, start creating content, creating that connectivity. And as you level up by, adding additional gear to your stuff. So from novice, you go to be a hobbyist when you purchase a microphone. Then you become an enthusiast when you purchase a high-end camera and add some room, acoustics, or, you're treating your room, you're designing your space. So you're leveling up at every single stage and as every single thing that you're starting to add. And then all the way up to, become a broadcaster expert where you now have multiple camera angles, your room is all set, you've got automations, again, the book talks about all of the different levels and it helps you get started.
Awesome. All right. So, actually, where can people grab copies of those?
Absolutely. So you can head on over to you can head on over to Amazon. Just look for 7 Stages of Home Studio Evolution, and you'll find that book there. I also have it as a digital copy, or or a physical copy, and I'm also working on an audiobook, so that'll come pretty soon. And then the next book is how it took my podcast from an audio only podcast to a video podcast. Because as we've seen in the last few years, when the pandemic hit, more and more people were consuming content on video. In fact, about a billion hours of video is consumed every single day on YouTube television. So what does that mean? We are used to watching YouTube. We're used to watching video. So why not your message also be video bound? So that's where you're going to get even more attention. You're going to get more distribution. You're going to get more people connecting with you and learning from you. So the next book that recently is coming out is called The Ultimate Guide to Video Podcasting, and it helps you go from audio podcast to video podcast.
Awesome. And that's going to be the one I pick up next as I start taking the show on the road.
Nice.
Last question for you. Where can people learn more about you?
Absolutely. So I'm on all the social media at Super Junaid, but if you want to learn more about the home studio, just go over to homestudiomastery.com and you can learn all about the home studio services that I have and the books and whatnot. And if you want to listen to more of my podcast, because I've been podcasting for a few years myself and reviewed over 600 guests, you can head on over to hacksandhobbies.com.
Awesome. All right, Junaid, thanks for joining.
Thanks, Chris. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you inviting me on.
That's the show, everyone. You can leave a rating and review, or you can do something that benefits you. Click the link in the show notes to subscribe to Agency Forward on Substack. You'll get weekly content, resources, and links from around the internet to help you drive your agency forward.